So, my name is Renata Anderson, and I'm here to host this beautiful podcast we call Word Without Borders. I am here with my friends Megan and Susie. Please, Megan, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. Hi Susie. Hi Renata. Welcome everyone tuning in and looking forward to having a great discussion with everyone today. Thank you.
Hello,
Awesome.
everyone. I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to have an amazing discussion with you today. My name is Susie, and I'm hosting this wonderful podcast.
awesome. So, today we are going to have a beautiful discussion here that everybody's going to be very excited because everybody want to know how people raise their kids in different countries, in different lands, so in different culture, So is this a different, how we see a lot, and mothers from different cultures, they
Yeah.
act and doing different things, and sometimes we laugh and sometimes we cry, so it depends on how hard this can be this. But anyway, so we are here to share our own experience, and we would love you to subscribe to our channel, like, comment, do your likes, and share that with your friends too. So,
Yeah.
Megan, please, let's start from South Africa, and you are the only mother here because me and Susie, we don't have this opportunity in life.
Yes.
Susan, yet, because she wanna have like a team, not just a
Yeah.
kid. She wanna have
Well,
a group of the kids.
Yes.
Yeah, and so Megan, so how do you raise your kid and how were you raised it? So is
oh,
this a difference between generations?
yeah.
Also, that's not just the land, but the time. No?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, Renata, I think when I was growing up, our parents were strict. So my mom was one of those parents, never gave us a hiding, ever, but she gave you the look. Do you guys know what the look is?
So how many siblings you are?
We are three
Three.
together, and I'm the baby.
Okay.
And I'm 4 years behind the other two who are quite close together. And my mom, all she needed to do was give you the look. Because when my mom said to you that you will not do this or that will not happen, trust me when she says it will not happen. That was my mom. You didn't ask twice. I think I popped out as a baby with the knowledge that I was not going to get away with anything with my mom. It was just one of those situations, and she managed us, controlled us with the look. And up to today, we laugh about it, but she still does it. My mom is in her 70s. I'm almost 50, and she can still look at me in that way, right? And I'll behave. So that was my mom. My dad was the real disciplinarian, and he's very, very strict, very conservative, but we got hidings with a leather belt. We literally got given hidings, and we were so naughty, guys. We were so naughty. We were getting hidings. It felt like every day. The three of us were just like always in trouble, always getting up to mischief. So for us, we grew up with a mom who didn't raise a hand. My dad did all the hidings, and my mom would actually go to my dad and say, they were naughty today. And guess what? Then the three of us needed to queue up for our hiding. And I was the baby, so I was always right at the back. So by the time my hiding came, I was crying already, right? So that was me and my experience. And yeah, today, I mean, I think I've given my biological daughter, because I'm a stepmom as well, and my stepkids are obviously older than our shared child. But my daughter has gotten a few flicks and little light slaps on the backside, and I think I've given her a good hiding once, and she was much younger. And the rest of the time, it was just basically sticking to your word like my mom would. If my mom said, if you don't do this, you will not get that, you would not get it. So that's something I pulled into my space with my kids, with my stepkids and my daughter. It was just, if you don't stick to your word, they'll never believe you when you tell them that there's going to be repercussions, right? So that's the way I typically manage it. My husband also doesn't believe in giving children hiding. So for us, it was more about speaking to them when they were younger, maybe just here and there when they were really naughty. But big difference between the way we were raised, and both of us, my husband and I, and the way we raised our kids. Definitely big change.
And do you see this difference in your family or in general in the country from the generations? Does it
Yeah.
change it a lot or it's just
It
your
has.
family?
No, it certainly has, and I think what we've lost, um, from our generation to the current generations is the fact that we had what I felt was an ingrown respect, an innate respect for adults and authority. And this day and age, not so much. It's almost like parents are being made to work for the same respect that we just were taught is necessary to have for adults and for authority. And yes, to a large degree, I believe that respect is earned. Typically respect would be earned, and I agree with that. But I also believe that just for the sake that elders are elders, that they need to be respected.
Okay.
I come from that old school, so yeah, that's my thought on that.
Oh, thank you for sharing. So, Susie, I would love to know how were you raised and how is Cameron today?
Actually, my mother is a very soft woman. She doesn't spank it. She does now, but before,
Oh,
no.
how many kids? Because I think the number of kids influence also, like,
She had 9 children. My mother had nine.
wow,
And
yeah,
9 children, and I'm the seventh and the last girl. She had 7 girls. I was the seventh girl and the last girl. After me, there's 2 boys.
seven
But my
girls.
elder sister were raised like boys. Actually, they were, because there was no boy in the house. Like my apart from my father, so my elder sister, they were raised like with spanking. My father really is, did a lot of spanking on them. But when at my turn, it was just like they look at you. It's like since I was very fair and very red, way before you even touch me, I'm already melted. Like you
It
just
works
see
well.
me like my father always tell me if I touch you, I'll just break you. So let me just let you go. And I was like, so small, let me just let you go. I can't even just disappear. And I was like, oh my god. So I very few spanking, very, very few. It was like one, but nothing serious, compared to my sisters.
Mm.
And my mom was just like, if you try me, you will fight me. So I don't try. So that I should not be.
Yeah,
I was so
yeah,
scared of those spanking and all this. So I really minimize ever being caught doing
yeah,
anything naughty and make sure my parents, they were very big on respect. Like
yes,
respect elders, like don't speak when they speak back to you. Just try to stay quiet, Even when they speak and I'm mad, I'm just like grumbling inside. I'm like, but I can't say anything. I just like, I just like,
yeah,
okay, I'm listening. And then I go to my room and be, oh, the shouting and all that, but I'm just by myself. I make sure nobody listens to um, any of my rebellions. I think that helped. But in Cameroon in general, it's more like um being being both in the US, having experienced both the US and Cameroon. I think it is a way the parenting is just so different. Discipline is
Hmm.
just so different. And here the discipline is more like we talk calmly and we get things solved and we talk through it. Back home we don't talk. You only
right,
see the effect,
yeah,
and then the
yeah,
talking comes after the effect has come on you. So what you do is that you really want to limit the effect before the talking. It's like if I do
yeah,
something bad that I do not have to do, they beat me first, then they tell you what you've done wrong. So they
right,
don't tell you before the beatings. And here I see like they talk through it, and still the students are still very hating, but they try to talk and say, oh, if you don't do that, you will not go to this place, this trip, you'll miss it, and all that. Back home, they don't even give you option. This
Yeah.
option, you don't have it. They will
Yeah.
spank you, and then the after talking will come later. And also the shoes, the mother shoes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. The mother shoes,
Oh,
not high heels. I hope.
normally every mother have to have one slippers, because any
Yeah.
slipper she catch beside her is just right on you. It's like she doesn't even care
Yes.
which side of you is gonna hit. While you're running, she just get, and she always have this perfect hit. It always knock
Have
Right.
GPS? No.
like a GPS
No.
tag. Like she just get the slippers and bam on you, and you're like, oh my god, or your head, or your back.
Yes.
Mothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mothers are ninjas.
yeah, ninjas. Like I don't know, how do you have this perfect shot of slippers all the time? Like I think
Yeah.
Training
after
after
raising,
7 kids.
after
Yeah.
you become an expert
Yeah. Yeah.
in bringing it up. But my mother is very, it's like a very soft, kind person. She would prefer to shout than to hit
Yes.
you. She prefer to talk you through it. She doesn't talk you through it. She shout you through it, the pro process, and then you come back to yourself. But my sisters are different. They beat, because that's how my father brought them up. He's like, we beat you, then the next time we talk about it once we have
Yeah.
already
Okay.
Yeah.
given the spank. So
Yeah.
yeah. But
And
I really,
and your
yes.
your sisters already have kids, don't they?
Yes, most of them have kids.
And do they raise their kids like that?
Yes, actually, they
Yeah.
raised their kids the same way they were
Yeah.
raised. It did not.
Yes.
I thought it would dilute. It did not. Like the same impact. That's the same impact they'll give. I think because they didn't have the experience of how others
Yes.
raise. It's like we grow in that environment and get back to that environment, so it's very normal. So now
Yeah.
that when you travel abroad and you have different perspective, you know that it's not all the spanking. There's a talking process that you learn. Like I learned the talking process actually when I came abroad, because I was like, okay, it's not all the, I didn't really like the spanking thing. So I was like, it's not all about spanking. You can also talk through it. But the way I see people behaving here, I myself, I want to spank. So, that reaction from back home is like getting into you, and you're like, I just want to throw you a slip or something. I get anything beside me, but you can't, because here it's not
Yeah.
like that. You don't,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you cannot
Well,
discipline somebody
I've,
else child.
I think there is a lot of aspects on that. We are laughing, but that can be very serious because some kids they just really suffer abuse from
Yeah.
that, and the spanking can really cause bad effects and traumas and distance from the relationship, and
Yeah.
it's very complex. I would love to. So in Brazil, I think in my grandmother's generation, it used to spank a lot of the kids. Like my mom was uh, raised like that, but she didn't raise us like that. So it's been changing, and we have now the law. There's a lot of protections from the law, from the system on the kids. So it depends on the case. In Brazil, you can lose your kid, the right of raising your kid, if they understand that there's an abuse of this situation. And here in the US, it's happening the same. So does in South Africa or Cameroon change something in the law about that, or it's up to the parents to decide?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, in South Africa, for sure, there are definitely laws around, and a good few years back, when we were at school, for example, we could still, our teachers could cane us,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
So we could get hidings in schools if we were misbehaving, didn't do homework, whatever. And not all the teachers did it, but there were teachers that did it, and it was allowed. It was part of
Mm-hmm.
just normal schooling system. And then a few years after I left school, that was abolished. And so now they don't allow it in schools anymore, right? The law doesn't allow it. People are saying it still happens, but the occurrence is that much lower
Mm-hmm.
of teachers actually physically disciplining kids.
Mm-hmm.
However, however, what where my concern and my problem with this whole situation of discipline and kids comes into play is if something doesn't work, you need to try something different, right? So I'm not a fan of what they call gentle parenting because you can't take, in my eyes, you can't take a child who has never had the experience of having the discipline in place and having the respect in place and having the environment that supports gentle parenting, right? So speaking to your child softly, asking them to do something rather than telling them, like we were told, get out of bed and do the dishes. Done. That's how we were raised. And if you didn't do it and you didn't do it immediately, you were in trouble, right? You were
Mhm.
disciplined. And now people growing up in that past era, they're trying to implement gentle parenting without preparing the environment properly. So the child has no link to what they're trying to do with them. They've got no example, no influence in gentle parenting around them. And suddenly parents are trying to implement it. So you've got a child or a child who might be ill disciplined or out of hand or really struggling to adapt to their space, and parents will try and gentle parent them, and the two just don't work together, right? Because you've got to sort of acclimatize the child to an environment of whatever discipline you choose. That's how I feel. And so I've got a real problem with the aspect of gentle parenting in a situation where they've abolished the punishment, the corporal punishment in schools, and parents are no longer allowed to beat their children, or I'm not talking abuse here, I'm talking giving them hidings, as Susie would say, spank. Um, there are rules against it. However, these days you're finding kids turning around and wanting to beat their parents because that's what they know or have seen around them, or that's what they maybe, in the early years grew up with. So if you're trying to change the system, you need to make a holistic change, and it's a change that actually applies to all and makes sense for all. So for me, that's a little bit of a concern around it. But certainly, we grew up, like Susie mentioned, we had a different influence from each of our parents. And even myself, we grew up amongst lots of my dad's siblings. My dad was from a big family as well. And my aunt had permission to slap me upside the head if I got into trouble. And she
Mhm.
was the first one to get to me, right? If one of my neighbors um, would see me doing something in the street somewhere and they felt it warranted a hiding, they would give me a hiding and my parents would do nothing. They
Mhm.
would actually take you from the neighbor and give you another hiding and put
Like
you to bed.
yes.
That's the way they used to deal with us. So for me, it's a little difficult to see where things are going now because I don't think that the new system is working because it just hasn't been implemented in the right way.
Mm. Mm.
Yes, talking about that, I think discipline, I love the fact that the new law has been established because some people, because of their past trauma, they were so spanked even when they are right, whether they are wrong, they were still spanked
Yes,
anyway. But for my
yes,
parents, it wasn't the case. Like it's when you're really going out of the line that you can receive a
yes,
spank. But if you're not, if it's something minor, they will not spank you. They will talk to you. They will tell you don't do that again and pass
yes,
on it. But because of the violence some of them, some people received during their childhood and all the spanking, they turn to reciprocate that to their
Yes.
children. And some people go to the point and say, I will show you what my parents showed me when I was little. I was not your parents. I was not the one that beat you up. So don't come and punish me for the beatings you receive in your young age. So I think that's where the law have to come into place. And like, you
Yeah.
don't beat the child for everything. You don't just beat the, it's not helping. Especially at a
Yeah.
certain age, beating becomes a revolution, that it like becomes something the child revolts against. That means
Hmm.
if at a certain age you beat your child, all you are trying to implement is a revolt. The child will start
Yes.
be more heady, more like it will just accentuate the action, the behavior you're trying to quench. So the
Yes.
thing is, I think discipline is good, right? And everybody has a different way of discipline. But also we have to consider that the children also have their decision, the place, I don't say they have to take decision by themselves, but they can be a better way of guiding. You can give them some spanking. They're up and down because they are behaving so bad, but please don't spank them with love.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
spank or discipline your child,
Yeah.
discipline with love. So that's why I did not mind my mother spanking me, because if I know that she ever touches me, that means I've gone way above the board. This is not a woman that
Yes.
will come on you. And my father same, like if you trigger him to that level, that means you have really done something very bad. So even though he spanks you, I still come back to him. I'm like, Daddy, I'm sorry. I know you beat me and I was very mad, but I'm sorry because I did you wrong. I
Yes.
shouldn't never have done that, sir.
Yeah.
And Susie, is it the same as Megan was telling about South Africa, that the neighbors, someone else can, discipline the kids even if they are not the parents, or is it different in Cameroon?
I think it's the same. Like my neighbor have the right to discipline us, like to not to spank us very hard, no, just a little bit of spanking. If I do something bad and they see it's putting me into danger, the first reaction they will do is spank me and tell me to get out of there. It maybe I am somewhere doing something that I shouldn't be doing. They will spank me and tell me go home, but
Yeah.
not a spanking like my parents will give me. The different the spanking my parents will give me is more accentuated than the spanking my
Yes.
neighbor will ever give me,
Yes.
because my neighbor is like, this is not my child. I don't want to hurt her in any way,
Yes.
but I want her to learn. So they
Yes.
can slap
And,
me.
and what about the teachers in this school? So how does it
Oh,
work?
the spank also. But I received so many spanking in my middle school. Oh my
Really?
goodness. Because I did
Uh,
not do assignment, I hated a subject called French. That was a
oh,
language.
because you didn't do an assignment, you can be spanked.
Yeah.
Yes, and coming late. I was always late. See, like
Oh,
lateness and not doing assignment, you can be spanked. And also disrespect. Disrespect was not allowed in any way. You never
Yeah.
have to respect an elder, even though the elder is wrong. There is a way
Yeah.
to tell the elder you are wrong. You cannot just go to an elder and say, you are a liar. You are wrong. That is
Yeah.
not the thing you can say. If an elder is wrong, you can. There's a better way to approach it. It's like, excuse me, I think you what you said was not really going on the way of what I meant. But don't
Yeah.
tell him he's wrong, because that's very bad. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So on our side, that's how we grew up. And even
okay.
when I meet elders now, there's a way I approach them and saying certain things. Even if it's my friend and it's an elder, like there's always this respect that is in place, regardless.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Well, in Brazil, I think that if a teacher do that, she goes to the TV. Everybody's going to say like, teachers spanking kids. Oh my God, it's going to be in the news, So it's a no, no, no. It's like, yeah, the teacher can be in big problem, and this week I don't know what really happened, but I think a student killed a professor in the university in Brazil. I didn't follow, but this is really rare. But what are the limits about education, discipline, and domestic violence or school violence? So I
Yeah.
think this is a limit because it's a lot of people they beat the kids and they because they are drunk, because they are frustrated, because they are not happy. It's nothing to do with discipline or with the behavior of the kid.
Yes.
Sometimes they just suffer, and when they see their parents like a threat, not someone that have to be there to guide you, to
Yeah.
support you, to discipline you, but someone to be afraid, to being threat. So
Yeah.
this is very different. And unfortunately, well, since I moved here to the US 8 years ago, not that in Brazil doesn't exist too, but here the cases of domestic violence is something that really scared me. And it's not allowed, but it
Mm.
still happened.
I think
So
also,
what is going on, when the society say, okay, in the law we cannot do that, but the kids are in threat.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think also it is affected by the level of, like, in the abroad there is a lot of drugs, and that affects the parents' mentality. So not allowing somebody to spank the children, I think, is something you should really consider in the foreign countries, because there's so much other effect or external factor that can play in that discipline, which I understand perfectly, that you should not allow somebody to beat your kid, to touch, because there's so many other things apart from. Back home is like, I know this is a normal person, he doesn't take drugs, he doesn't get high, this is a responsible parent. So I can allow them to spank my kids, because I know that
Yeah.
if they spank out of love and out of discipline, not because they hate, or maybe there's something they're high on something and it just go on my
Yes.
kids anyhow. Because
Yeah.
of that, also I respect the law here, and I really think it's something that have to stay, because if they
Yeah.
leave that law, a lot of worse thing would happen to
Mm.
children, and also to not only children, also to like parents themselves.
Yeah.
But now they have left the law so high that now the children are the one wanting to beat their parents. They have
Yeah.
to put also a law on parent on children, saying that if
Yeah.
you touch your parents in prison immediately. It's not even
Yeah.
something we have to talk about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm with
So
you on that one.
yeah, I think the law was established on the children, but it was not made two ways. I think it had to be
Yeah.
made two ways. Is that both the parent, you have something you don't have to do to your children, but the children, you think you have laws. As a parent, I do also have laws. The day you touch me is in prison directly. You don't even, there's no other ways you have to go than to prison.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think it's a very modern challenge, how to raise kids with love and respect and harmony without, losing completely the control. How can you guide the kid to be a good person, responsible and caring? But I want to share something that I learned in indigenous communities in Brazil. That when I arrived 25 years ago in the remote areas of the Amazon rainforest. For a lot of them, I was the first non-indigenous person that they ever saw. And it was very interesting because I never saw an indigenous beating a kid or spanking a kid. And the
Yes.
kid respected them. I think, when Megan say about the face, the look, like,
Mhm.
they just look, they don't need to do anything else. And so I think we lost this look in some
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
because when we have to go to another level of physical coercitation, no, it's like I am, I don't know, I don't have kids, but as a pediatric nurse, I cannot agree with that. It's
Yeah.
hard for me to agree with violence. It's against my nature. But I
Mhm.
also think like how it's the best way to raise kids
Yeah.
and don't lose the control.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think this is the question. And if you have the answer, please share with us because we would love to know. And because I think it's a magic, like
Yeah.
what chemistry here, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Renata, I think just to throw something small in the plate there as well. I think for me, what I've come to realize in my space as a mom and as a child, having grown up with that, um, it's really important for one to make sure that you instilling values and the thinking behind good discipline and respect in your kids. You can't expect your child to go out on the street and do what they do every day, just their normal life, without, you can't send them out there without the respect, without the consideration for other people, without having spoken to them or shown them what it is and expect them to duplicate that outside, right? So for me, it always comes back to, where does this behavior come from? Where did you pick that up? Where did you learn that? Or who taught you, or who didn't teach you to respect your elders? That's what our local people say. It's, if the child does something wrong, they look at the parents,
Parents immediately.
right? Because they feel that that respect has to come from your parents teaching you what is wrong and right and how to treat other people. And I think if we go back to that, because a lot of times, lots of instances you see, because of the social issues, the frustrations and the drugs and all of that, none of that exchange of that kind of information is happening between parent and child anymore. Very, very little is it a day-to-day thing, or very often it's not a day-to-day thing. So I think if we can go back to that, it will really help to get that whole process back on track. Because I'm just finding there's too many kids just let loose without that training, without that parent guiding them. And you can't expect for them to do it right
Yeah.
without that.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. Thank you so much, Megan. Thank you so much, Susie. I think it's a very complex and challenging a topic to discuss. We have a lot of things to discuss, but we don't have enough time. So I have to to close the episode now. But I would love to understand better, what do you think about that? How do you raise your kids? How you were raised? And share with
Yeah.
us. So
Yes,
thank you
please.
so much
Thank you.
and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye bye.
We're crossing oceans, crossing skies, lifting each other as we rise. No more limits, no more walls. Together we answer the world's calls. World without borders, we are free, telling the stories of humanity. No more divide, we stand as one. Together, together, our journey's begun.